T for T is an all-inclusive process of training people who are already following Jesus to tell others, their friends, family, how they themselves began to follow Jesus and how others can do that too. And really what I want to see this turn into is a network of reproducing churches from Breedang till Norse Boy. Churches that want to see their community changed, that want to see lives changed in their community, and so that people can begin to follow Jesus and tell others about what it's like and what they're experiencing by following Him. When we gather and we do this T for T, or training for trainers, we meet in small groups, and T for T is divided up into 3 parts. I like to joke and kid with people and say it's like an ice hockey game. It's in 3 parts. And the first part, we gather together, maybe over a cup of coffee, maybe something to eat, and we start off with basically, how are we doing? How was our week? How are we feeling? We go around in a circle and we share with each other how we're doing, how we're feeling. And then that part moves on to worship. We'll open up the Bible, maybe read from a psalm, read from a section of scripture, and pray. Just sit back and enjoy God and who He is. That leads on to what we call accountability. And it'll be questions that we ask each other, things like, well, how did your goal for last week that you actually made at the T for T meeting, how did it go? Did you tell somebody that you wanted to tell about Jesus? And how did it go when you told them that you were a follower of Jesus? We have a time where we go around and each of the people gets to, each person in the group gets to share just a little bit and about how it went and things like that. And then of course the last part is vision casting. We want to end the first part with the basic question I like to ask is, why are we doing this? Guys, why are we here? And we usually take a scripture that tells exactly, because what we're doing is really, it's not something new. It's 2,000 years ago we read about it in the book of Acts of discipleship. So the second stage, or the second part of it, is basically a Bible study where we gather around a scripture, usually a paragraph from a chapter in the Bible, and we discuss it. We have certain questions that we ask, and we try to think through finding out how can we understand this scripture, how can we use it practically in our life, and who can we actually share this scripture with? Somebody, maybe a friend or a person that we know who needs to hear this. And maybe it would change their life as well. And then it takes us into the third part. Now the third part is a very important part, because the third part is when we practice together, maybe telling the story that we just read. Maybe it's a parable that Jesus told His disciples, or a story that Jesus told them. And now we want to tell this story to somebody who we think really needs to hear this, and it would help them. So we practice with each other telling this story, or we might practice with each other talking about how we can actually apply this in our life and how it can change our life. And then the last part, so first the practicing, and then setting goals for the next week, which when we meet again, we'll talk about in our, when we sit around and ask each other, how did it go? But we set goals for how will I use what I learned this week in my life, at work, at play, next week. So then maybe the next question you might be thinking about is, who goes to T for T, or training for trainer groups? Who are they? Well, you know, they're all different ages and from many different backgrounds. We have Swedes, we have immigrants, we have young, and we have older. I say older because I'm getting there. But we have all different kinds of people going. men and women, and it's a time where we join together and, as I mentioned before, go through a process with the Word of how we want to walk with Jesus, how He wants us to walk with Him, and how we can share it with others.
Det är naturligt att bjuda in människor i min omgivning till Tea for Tea. Och det gör vi av kärlek, för vi vill dela med oss av budskapet, det som Jesus har gett oss. Och jag har sett förändringar inom mig själv och i min omgivning av de här människorna som är med där. Och det är när vi vittnar inför varandra så stärks vår tro och förstår hur stor uppoffring Jesus har gjort för oss. Och det stärker oss i livet och i vardagen. Och det motiverar de andra också att gå vidare och bjuda in andra människor så att vi blir fler och starkare i tron. Och det kommer påverka Vårberg med tiden, och det är vi väldigt glada över. Och jag är jätteglad att jag får vara del av det här. Det är en stor ära och det är väldigt roligt också.
Then maybe the next question, and the big question is, okay, what's the purpose with all this? Why would a man go to training for trainers or Tea for Tea? And what's in the back of my mind? What am I thinking? Well, I want to see, as I mentioned before, I want to see small reproducing churches that will really desire to see God's kingdom come down and change the communities where they are worshiping God in, where the church is located. I want to see this from Bredäng to Norsborg. I want to see communities change for the better and God's blessing upon these communities. So that's the real purpose in what we're doing.